Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back to another episode of Spiritual Midwife. If you're tuning in for the first time, we've embarked on a deep dive into Eckhart Tolle's transformative book, The Power of Now. In our first episode, we explored the first principle of living in the present moment, understanding how the now is the only real moment we ever have. By being present, we connect to our deepest truths and unlock a more powerful, peaceful way of living. As you know, we've also covered the 4 agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz in previous episodes. So if you're just joining us, I highly recommend going back and exploring those episodes together. The 4 agreements and the power of now offer a powerful foundation for spiritual growth and soul sovereignty. Welcome to Spiritual Midwife, the podcast that tenderly guides you through the transformative journey of spiritual awakening and personal development towards the ultimate destination of soul sovereignty. I'm Claire Attio, a medicine woman and dedicated guide to the profound realm of soul sovereignty, and you are listening to Spiritual Midwife. Today we're moving forward with the second principle of the power now, which is the illusion of time. This principle builds directly on the idea of living in the present. Let's dive in and uncover how our relationship with time affects the way we experience life and how we can free ourselves from the mental shackles of the past and future. So what does Eckhart Tolle mean by the illusion of time? When we speak about time, we tend to think of it in terms of past, present and future. But Tolle explains that the only moment that is ever real is the now. The past is simply a collection of memories, and the future is nothing more than mental projection. So both of these are concepts that we hold in our minds, but they don't actually exist in the present reality. The illusion of time is one of the greatest sources of suffering, because we spend so much of our lives either dwelling in the past, our regrets, mistakes or traumas, or anxiously planning and worrying about the future, what might happen, what could go wrong, what we need to control. In this way, we mentally live outside the present moment, which causes a lot of stress and prevents us from fully experiencing life as it unfolds. When we get trapped in this illusion of time, we disconnect from the now and we lose access to the peace and joy and freedom that comes from simply being present. Let's explore how this illusion of time plays out in our everyday lives. Once we start to see how it shows up, we can begin to release it and find greater peace in the present moment. So, living in the past. Have you ever found yourself replaying a conversation in your mind? I know it's something I constantly do. Maybe something someone said that hurt you, or perhaps you're regretting how you responded. And it doesn't even have to be about hurt and regrets. Very often we can spend a lot of time in the past going over conversations, which reflective practice is very good and healthy, but we need to be mindful of the amount of time that we are spending on reflective practice, because that reflective practice is the illusion, is part of living in the past rather than being in the present. When you find yourself going over something, wishing you could have said or done something different, it's living in the past. And when we stay stuck in those loops, we're allowing our minds to pull us away from the present. The reality is that conversation is over and done with. It no longer exists in the present. But when we cling to it mentally, we carry that energy with us, often letting it affect how we feel and act in the present moment. Worrying about the future, that's the flip side even. How often do we find ourselves worrying about things that haven't even happened yet? Whether it's financial concerns, health issues, or something that is simple as a meeting or an event coming up, we spend so much mental energy trying to control and predict what might happen. And I emphasize that might because we have no way of controlling the future. It's an illusion. We feel we are getting control around it because we're thinking about it, and and being a Scorpion, I can identify with this so much, because Scorpions like to look at everything from a 360-degree perspective, and they will put all sorts of paradigms into the mix. And what if this happens, and what if that happens, and what if this happens, and that will be my response in that given situation, that will be my response in that given situation. And whilst that is a really good trait to have, because you can kind of appear to be speaking on the hop, as it were, there is a lot of time wasted. There is a lot of energy wasted. And it does create a sense of constant anxiety. And it prevents us from being fully in the present, in the now. By observing over the future, we miss the richness of what's happening right now, right in front of us. The key is to recognize that time, past and future, only exists in our minds. Our power, our peace is in the present. By letting go of this mental time trap, we start to free ourselves from unnecessary suffering and step into a deeper sense of ease and flow. And I'm not going to pretend it's easy, because it's not. As I said, I'm a Scorpion, so it's my innate nature to project myself, to carry myself energetically, mentally into the future, and look at all the different paradigms and to try and work out how I can best respond in any given situation. But it does come at a price. It does give that sense of heightened alertness, that heightened awareness, and with that, in the constant form, can become anxiety. So it's learning to take a breath. It's learning que sera, sera. Taking a breath and going, okay, I trust myself enough to know that I have the tools in my toolbox that whatever presents itself, I can handle. And if in the moment I feel I can't, I'll take a breath, and I should draw upon that. I should draw upon my inner resources. And that takes trust, that takes time. So how does all this fit in with the 4 agreements, the concept of the illusion of time with the 4 agreements that we've already covered in the past? You'll start to see how these teachings align and reinforce one another. Be impeccable with your word, which is the first of the 4 agreements. When you're free from the illusion of time, you speak from a place of clarity and presence. Your words aren't clouded by past resentments or future anxieties. Instead, you're mindful of how your words reflect your truth in the moment. Don't take anything personally. The illusion of time often makes us hold on to past hurts or project future scenarios onto others' actions. But when we let go of the past and the future, we realize that other people's words and actions have absolutely nothing to do with us. We remain grounded in the present. It helps us avoid taking things personally. Don't make assumptions. Assumptions often arise when we're living in the future, imagining outcomes or creating stories in our minds. When we stay present and recognize the illusion of time, we stop making assumptions and instead focus on what is real and true in the current moment. And this one can be really challenging if you're very intuitive, because often you will, depending on what your clairs are, in my example, my strongest clair is clairsentient, so I will feel things. And that claircognizant will come in, and from that feeling, I will then gain a clair knowing. I will have a knowing about a given situation, but the reality, that situation hasn't played itself out yet. So in that sense, I'm making assumptions. Now, those assumptions, because of the gifts that I have, being highly intuitive, are usually correct. I'm not going to say always correct because I'm human, but they're usually correct. But it's holding back, it's holding that knowledge. And this is something, if you're an intuitive, that really practice doing this. Hold that knowledge, don't dismiss it, just hold it. But allow the situation to play out as it naturally would, so that you're not making assumptions. You are given the facts, and then add them to that knowing, that sense, or whatever your clairs are. We all carry different clairs, we all have different gifts. So however your intuition works, whatever your strongest is, then just sit with it. Don't dismiss it, but sit with it. But also take a breath and allow the situation to play out. And this will allow us to focus on what is real in the present and what is true in the current moment. The last of the agreements is always do your best. When we are free from the mental trap of time, we're able to give our best in the present moment. We're not burdened by past failures or future expectations. Our best is what we can offer right now. And that is so liberating, because we accept with greater grace. We accept with greater grace. It's very, very freeing to lift that burden of expectations off of our backs and off of other people's backs by being in the moment and knowing that what we can offer right now is our best. We bring more awareness, presence, and peace to every situation. So some tips for breaking free from the illusion of time. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness is one of the most powerful tools, and I know everybody is probably sick and tired of hearing about mindfulness, but honestly, when you start to live from a space and a place of mindfulness, it's a game changer. Whenever you catch yourself dwelling in the past or worrying about the future, gently bring your focus, your attention back to the present moment. Focus on your breath if you have to. If that's the only thing you can remember, focus on my breath. That will bring you back to the present moment. Because when you focus on the breath, you will start to come back into your body fully. And when you come back into your body fully, you start to ground again. And when you're grounded, you're in the moment. Consciously let go of past and future thoughts. And as I've described earlier, it can be challenging, but let's rise to the challenge, hey? This is about creating higher levels of consciousness, not just for ourselves, but for future generations. So let's rise to that challenge. Is it easy? No, it's not. It's not always easy. But let's just be mindful, conscious This is what we're learning. This is what the way we want to express ourselves. It's important to become aware of when our mind drifts into the past or into the future. When we notice this happening, don't judge yourself. Just observe it, be aware of it, conscious of it. Acknowledge the thought, then let it go. Remind yourself that the past is over, the future hasn't yet arrived, your power is here now. Set daily intentions. And those daily intentions, as I said, it's like that rising to the challenge. Let those daily intentions be about being present. At the start of each day, set the intention to stay present throughout the day. You might say something like, today I choose to be fully present in the moment. And by setting this intention, you're sending a vibration out to the universe, who will then send one back to support you in that. You bring awareness to your day, and it helps you catch yourself when you do slip, and you will slip. And then just be mindful to bring yourself back again when you have slipped. We've already talked a little bit about grounding, but ground yourself in nature. One of the best ways to break free from the illusion of time is to connect with nature. If you think about the calendar that we all use, we have it split into the seasons: winter, spring, summer, autumn, and they're depicted by a date. But if you start to get out on the land, if you start to connect with nature, nature will tell you when spring is here. Nature will tell you when autumn is coming. Nature will tell you when winter is here. It doesn't fixate on a date. It uses all of its senses and communicates with all other sentient beings. And its connection to the cosmos, its connection to the climate. And it does what it needs to do in a timely manner, because it's present. It has present, accurate information for the moment to work from. And as humans, when we spend time in nature, whether through a walk or simply just sitting under a tree, it helps us ground, it helps us connect to the land, it helps us connect to that internal clock, and it releases the mental noise of time-based thoughts. So, wrapping this up, the illusion of time is one of the biggest barriers to living a peaceful and empowered life. When we release our attachment to the past and our anxiety about the future, we open ourselves up to the freedom and the joy that can only be found in the present moment. Remember, your soul's true essence exists in the now. By freeing yourself from mental constraints of time, you step into a more authentic and aligned version of yourself. You begin to experience life with greater clarity, with greater ease and greater purpose. As we continue our journey through the power of now, I encourage you to practice staying present in your daily life. Let go of the illusion of time, and you'll find that your connection to yourself and the world around you deepens. And I want to interject here, because there's just a little funny story, because since I've been doing this work, since I've been on my spiritual path, and since I have connected deeply with the land, which has been going on for many years now, I always like to wear a watch. My whole life I like to be on time, and my whole life was depicted by time. And then when I started, not when I first started my spiritual journey, but when I really started aligning, I found that every watch I put on my wrist would break. It just would stop. And I can't tell you how many watches I bought, and I just gave up. In the end, I just gave up. We are not meant to live our lives from the constraints of time. And if ever there was a physical knowing, a physical manifestation of that, for me, it was in the fact that I could never wear a watch. It would always break. It would stop. It wouldn't wind up anymore, or it didn't matter whether I had battery or whether I had the old cog type watch. They would just not work. And that was to get me, to help me to align to the present, to the now. Now, obviously, when we have jobs, we have careers, we have schedules. And yes, it's important that we keep to those schedules and we keep on time. But there's a difference between keeping a schedule and running your whole life from a clock, rather than taking a breath, going inwards and saying, what is right for me now? Not what is on my calendar, what is on my schedule. There are certain aspects that, yes, we do need to fulfill, and we need to fulfill them within a time frame, absolutely. There are other times when we need to just go inwards, listen to our bodies, and take action from what our body, our soul is telling us. So thank you for joining me on this episode of Spiritual Midwife, and I shall see you on the next one. Take care.